This is the continuation of part 1. The next verse. This is from chapter 32 of Quran, verses 7 to 10. Who made well whatever he created and started the creation of man from clay. Then he made his progeny from a drop of semen, from despised water. Then he gave him a proportioned shape and breathed into him of his spirit. And he granted you the power of hearing and the eyes and the hearts. Little you give thanks. And they said, Is it that when we disappear in the earth, is it that we really come into a new creation? Rather, they are ones who deny the meeting with their Lord. The next verse is from chapter 38, verses 71 to 72. When your Lord said to the angels, I am going to create man from clay. So, once I make him perfectly and breathe my spirit into him, you must fall down in prostration before him. The next verse is from chapter 75, verses 1 to 6. I swear by the day of resurrection, and I swear by the self-reproaching conscience that resurrection is a reality. Does man think that we will never reassemble his bones? Why can we not do so while we are able to reset even his fingertips perfectly? But man wishes to go on violating Allah's injunctions in front of him. He asks, when will be this day of resurrection? The next verse is from chapter 33, verses 72 to 73. We did indeed offer the trust, al-amana, to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to undertake it, being afraid thereof. But man undertook it. He was indeed unjust and foolish, with the result that Allah has to punish the hypocrites, men and women, and the unbelievers, men and women, and Allah turns in mercy to the believers, men and women, for Allah is often forgiving, most merciful. After sharing all the material read thus far, the author of the book asked ChatGPT to kindly analyze the verses of Quran from which these conclusions are derived. Please give your opinion whether or not my drawn conclusions are correct. The ChatGPT responded as follows. It states, Your analysis of the Quranic verses you have presented, particularly regarding the creation of human beings, touches on complex theological and metaphysical topics, and your conclusions do reflect certain interpretations of Islamic scripture. However, let me offer a detailed evaluation of your conclusions with respect to the Quran and Islamic thought. Key conclusions you mentioned. Number 1. Creation of Adam and Eve's bodies directly from soil, not through evolution. You conclude that the physical bodies of Adam and Eve were created directly from soil, bypassing evolutionary processes. The Quranic verses you cited, such as, He it is who has created you from clay, chapter 6, verse 2. Indeed, we created man from sticky clay, chapter 37, verses 11 and 12. He created man from dry clay like pottery, chapter 55, verse 14. These verses, when taken literally, do suggest that the first human beings were created from earth or clay. However, Islamic scholars have debated whether these verses should be interpreted literally or metaphorically. While some interpret this as direct creation, as you do, others suggest that clay may symbolize the elements from which life arose, which aligns with scientific understandings of human biological evolution. Point number 2. Adam and Eve as the first humans directly created from soil. The Quran does emphasize that Adam was created from clay and that God breathed His Spirit into him. For instance, I am going to create a human being from a ringing clay made of decayed mud. This is from chapter 15, verses 28 and 29. So, once I make him perfectly and breathe my spirit into him, you must fall down in prostration before him. Chapter 38, verses 71 and 72. These verses support your conclusion of a direct divine act of creation from Adam and Eve, as well as the infusion of the divine spirit or ruh. However, this narrative does not explicitly detail the evolutionary history of earlier hominins like Australopithecus, Homo habilis, etc. It's worth noting that many Muslims consider the scientific theory of evolution compatible with these Quranic accounts in a broader sense, viewing Adam and Eve as symbolic figures for the first ensouled humans. Point number 3. Spiritual beings, that is nafs, existing prior to attachment to physical bodies. You mention that Adam and Eve were pre-existing spiritual beings, that is nafs, who were in a state of slumber before being attached to the physical bodies. The verse from Surah Al-Araf, that is chapter 7, 172 states, "When your Lord took from the children of Adam from their loins their descendants and made them testify, saying to them, 'Am I not your Lord?'" This is often interpreted to mean that human souls, that is nafs, existed in a primordial state before being placed into bodies. Your interpretation aligns with this traditional understanding that the nafs was created before bodily life and entered a test phase through its attachment to a physical carrier, that is the body. Point number 4. Ruh or spirit as divine guidance or conscience. You describe the ruh as a divine spark or conscience given for guidance and rebuke. The Quran refers to the ruh as a divine aspect breathed into humans. For instance, "And I have blown into him from my spirit." This is from chapter 15, verse 29 and chapter 38, verse 72. This ruh is generally seen as the divine element that elevates humanity above other creatures. Your view that it serves as a moral compass is supported by interpretations of the term nafs al-lawama in Islamic spirituality, that is, the self-reproaching soul. This aligns well with traditional Islamic teachings on human conscience. Point number 5. Body as a temporary carrier for the soul, that is, nafs. Your view of the body as a temporary vessel for the soul reflects the classical Islamic understanding of the body being a material form subject to biological life and death, while the soul or nafs is the true essence that will continue after death and be accountable on the day of judgment. Verses like, "We have created man from an extract of clay, then we made him a sperm drop." Chapter 23, verses 12 to 16. "From this dust we created you, and in this we shall put you back, and from this we shall raise you up again." Chapter 20, verse 55. These verses reinforce the idea of a cyclical existence involving creation from earth, biological life, death, and resurrection. Point number 6. The test, trust or al-amana. You referred to the verse on the trust, that is al-amana. "We did indeed offer the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to undertake it, and man undertook it. He was unjust and foolish." Chapter 33, verse 72. This is traditionally understood to mean that humans were given free will and the responsibility to act morally. Your interpretation that humans are being tested based on moral conduct aligns with many Islamic commentaries. The ruh, that is spirit, and the nafs, that is soul, are seen as crucial components of this test, with the former guiding the latter towards righteous behavior. We will continue this in the next segment. Thank you.